So the question comes up, how does a router know how to send or where to send a packet? Well, a router knows by something called the routing table. A routing table looks like this. Hey, if I want to get to network 10, go out of port 1. If I want to get to network 20, go out of port 2. If I want to get to network 30, go out of port 3. And if I want to get to network 40, go out of port 4. Now, it could be that this 40 network is not even on that router directly. This could be 3 routers away, but it still knows to go out of port 4. Well, we're going to talk a little bit later about routing protocols, so how it knows. But for now, we just know that it has this table in it, and this table says, in order to get to these networks that I know about, this is the port to go out of. Now, the router itself has a default gateway, and in this case, it's port 3. And you notice this says 0.0.0.0. That's the default way of saying, this is my default gateway, and we call it, in the case of a router, we call it the gateway of last resort. In other words, if it doesn't have an entry in the table here saying which port to go out of, in this case, go out of port 3. That's my gateway of last resort. Here's what a routing table looks like in a router. So this was the show IP route command, and here is the gateway of last resort. In this case, if it's gateway of last resort, it's going to go out of the serial port 001. Down here, if it's going to 172.16, it's going to go out, it's directly connected, it's going to go out of the gigabit Ethernet port 0/0. If it's a 172.16.2 network, then it's going to go out of serial 000, and so on. Now, all the rest of this stuff that's in here, these numbers over here, and this directly connected stuff, and these subnets, and all these letters, that's a little more advanced. We get into that in another course. We're not going to get into that in this course. Just be aware that you have a set of networks over here, and then which port it should send the information out of in order to get to that network. And this does not necessarily mean that it's directly connected. In fact, in this case here, the 172.16.3 network here is not directly connected to this router. It just knows that if it goes out serial 000, it'll get there. This is a routing table on a PC, and you see we have something similar. Here's a gateway of last resort, and then for the 10 network, well, it's directly connected, and it goes out of this interface, this NIC interface. We're not going to try to interpret this because, again, that's a little more advanced, which we do in another course, but just be aware that it looks very similar on a PC as the way it does on a router.